Yo guys, so in this video we're going to cover how Carzzy plays Kaisa. So for those of you who don't know, Carzzy is a professional player who plays in the LEC, and I've taken one of his soloQ replays and we're going to look through some things that he does in the games that you can implement. So this is something that most of you probably might not even think about, but the first thing we see in this lane is Renata and Kaisa going into the bush. And this is because they don't really want to give this away because of the matchup. Kalista is a very strong early game champ, and she requires you to snowball. By giving them this bush to Kalista and Mumu, it basically means you have to fight them early to touch the wave. So instead of this, they've claimed the bush as theirs before Amumu and Kalista can get in there. Kaisa doesn't really want to fight this lane, but she will if she can. Don't take this as a like never fight sort of situation. It just means that you are in an unfavored position. So unless the situation and the scenario favors you, you don't want to fight. You just want to scale. So we can see that nothing really happens for a few seconds, and then Renata gets caught by Amumu. And you'll realize that Carzzy's focus instantly goes to hitting the Amumu because he's in range and he can get some damage off to try and equalize this trade a bit more. This is like really good, but you never really want to do this unless if you're in position to also take damage, because then it's just going to further extend the trade in their advantage, right? Directly after this as well, you'll realize that the minions have the advantage for Kalista and Mumu, so Carzzy has to respect this. Again, he doesn't want to fight when the situation is not in his favor. We can see Carzzy is cautious for pushing for 2. Because he's a bit unsure if he wants to fight or not, because Renata's chunked, right? But he has his Q to clear the wave, which is really what you want to be doing when you're pushing for 2 on Kaisa. That Q will clear the wave. It adds a significant tool to push the wave, so you want to be using it. Here we see that Talia is in the area, which means that Carzzy and Renata are looking to basically be aggressive, and they get a really nice trade-off here. I don't think they would be acting this aggressive, however, unless they knew Talia was in the area, because they're pushing towards basically the enemy jungler could gank. However, because Talia is here first, it gives them priority and they can act more aggressive on this even if the enemy jungler does come to gank them. You can see here as well that Talia is spam pinging to push. However, Carzzy doesn't really listen to this. And the reason that he doesn't is because he wants more of a wave before they dive, if they do dive, which sets up the opportunity to if they have the next wave coming in. So he's trying to like slow down the push to gather the extra minions so they have a lot of minions on their dive if they decide to. Now you can see obviously this goes the way of Carzzy. He played it very well because he was mechanically, just better than the enemy players it seems. But there are a few things that you can notice. One, he started kiting towards the lower health target and away from the other two, which obviously gives him more time. And then after this, he runs towards the next lowest target, which is like 2 autos from dead, right? And the reason he does this is because obviously he knows he has Renata W and he's just playing around his support's abilities very well. Now, if we fast forward a little bit, we can see that this matchup has now changed dramatically, right? Carzzy is not really looking to just be safe and scale anymore because he has a lead and he needs to push it, which is exceptionally important in solo queue. If you have a lead, you want to push it as far as you can without losing it. It's a delicate balance. We can see here that he's fighting Amumu, and it's because he knows he can win. He has the items and the stats to just win this fight outright. And it's Amumu's fault for actually taking this fight. After this, he's literally just translating his lead into a item advantage. He's just going to base. But before he does base, notice how he crashes the wave. This is important for wave management, as by the time he gets back, the wave should be on his side or pushing towards him, which then also just puts Kalista at a further disadvantage. As we get back, as I said, the wave is pushing towards Carzzy and he goes to trim it a little bit because he wants to hold this on his side or have the opportunity to. This is just exactly what I said before. He's crashed the wave, so it's in his advantage. Kalista now has to push the wave and try and get a bounce, but that puts all of the responsibility now on Kaisa and Renata, and which obviously doesn't look very good because if you'll notice as well, Talia is in the area, which means that if Kalista and Amumu do push this wave, they're at threat of a gank as well. He has generated this advantage from capitalizing on Amumu engaging on him, but also from crashing this wave. We can see now, Carzzy decides to crash the wave because he sees the opportunity and Kalista alone. After this, he's just pressuring the tower, and we can see basically he takes a fight on the other end of their tower, which is not only starving Kalista of minions, it also is giving him the advantage if he wins the fight, right? So, which he's likely to do. So after this point, we can kind of agree this game is looking pretty doomed. What he needs to do now is take this massive lead that he has and transition it to other lanes, and we're going to transition into that now. Before we do, if you're enjoying the video, please drop a like, subscribe, all that, comment. It helps. Thanks. So the way he's going to achieve this is commonly referred to as like lawnmowering, which is basically where Carzzy is the lawnmower and towers and objectives are the grass, right? So he's just going to transition to other lanes, gather farm, gather towers and objectives, and he's going to basically do this lane by lane. So we can see he starts with bot lane tower, he finishes that off, and then he rotates towards mid tower. And mid tower is going to give his team a lot of pressure because the mid tower being down just opens up the map a lot more. We can be him being super aggressive, but the thing is if you just look at this as aggression, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. He has a massive lead and he is just trying to solidify this game, basically. He knows he can take these plays. Like, he's with his team as well. Like, he's not going into Xerath alone. He knows his team's there, and he's just basically pushing his advantage, pushing his lead, which not a lot of people in solo queue, especially in lower elo, are doing as often as they should be. You can notice as well, after he's finished with the mid tower, he rotates to top lane and he starts to take the top lane tower. He's basically just knocking these objectives out to secure his team gold, him gold, and just open up the map to the point where it's basically unrecoverable for the enemy team. After taking top tower, we can see that Carzzy is knowledgeable about his base timings, which everyone should be. Basically, he knows he's on top side, which is the worst place to be, especially if Drake is coming up. So he starts his base and he does this in a good time. Remember that there could be a fight before Drake. You want to try and get there a bit early most of the time, because obviously there's just going to be like these shenanigans going on around Drake, right? So he gets there early enough because he knows he's the backbone of his team. He knows how strong he is. Thankfully, Carzzy did base for this because there is a fight around Drake. The enemy team aren't just going to let them have Drakes. You have to kind of remember that these are neutral objectives. The enemy team doesn't want to give these up either, so most likely they are going to be there whether they're at a deficit or not. A smart team would probably sacrifice this, but this is solo queue as well, and can they really afford to? They kind of have to flip this. So we can see here that Carzzy just goes crazy in this fight. His mechanics are a lot better. This is something that comes with obviously being a pro player, but these things are important that you can adapt to in your game now. He based, if you're strong in a game, your mechanics might not be like, you're not going to have the mechanics of Carzzy, let's say. Like, that's just admitting we're worse, but we can always get better. But he is doing these fundamentals like basing, lawnmowering. He's doing them because it's giving him the advantage. And a lot of people will say, oh, he's just mechanically better. But if he wasn't doing these things, if he wasn't at Drake, if he didn't take the towers, he would not be in a position to carry this game in the first place, regardless of his mechanics or not. The fundamentals are what you need to get down first, and by playing the game, your mechanics will most likely increase, right? So knowing the fundamentals and implementing them is the most important thing. So this game is pretty over at this point. The enemy team is at a severe deficit, but there is a few things that I wanted to quickly cover, which I see a lot of low elo people doing, which is just not the right case, and you can still learn more from this, right? Although Carzzy has a massive lead, he's being strategic as well as his team. Right? They get mid inhib, and I see a lot of people in low elo who just basically ARAM, right? There's the idea that, especially in NA, just ARAM it. You have an inhib down, just ARAM. But you'll notice that he's not doing this. He's pressuring side lanes. And the reason that he's doing this is because mid lane is going to push by itself, right? It's going to push by itself. It has a super minion. You don't need to be there. You need to be spreading and causing the enemy team to just suffer because they need to split their resources, which are already limited. a lot of these fundamentals are not just on Carzzy. Like, a lot of these fundamentals are not just about Kaisa. They're about how you play the game, which even as a mid laner, this applies to everyone. You shouldn't be just barreling down a lane with super minions, hoping you can kill the enemy team. It's just not the right way to do it. You need to be spreading your resources. Basically, I'll save you your time from this point. There's a few team fights. They get a Baron and they basically just end the game off that Baron because they have pressure in multiple lanes. They can split their resources and just basically end the game, right? There's not really too much towards that. So some key takeaways. Using Q to push for level 2, using Q on isolated targets, knowing your matchup. You want to be knowing the matchup and how you should be playing. And when that changes, when you have a lead, you want to be pushing. You want to be spreading your lead by lawnmowering as a fundamental. There are a few other strategies towards this, but obviously I'd suggest you basically get down lawnmowering first because it's the most simple, right? Go to another lane, spread your lead, take towers, things like that, take objectives. You want to get down your base timings for objectives, and when mid inhib is down or another inhib, don't just barrel down that lane. You want to be using your pressure from that lane to generate leads in other lanes, which is just further mounting the pressure on the enemy team. I just wanted to end the video here, but before I do, I want to just say like a few things about the channel. I have been making less videos recently. There's going to be a few coming out. Some Jinx guides, and I also want to make a video on actually structuring your play in soloQ and not just spamming games. But as you've noticed, I have a very sporadic upload pattern at the moment. It's because League isn't in my focus as much anymore. I'm not playing as often. I'm still playing and I plan to play on season 13, but yeah, the uploads are going to continue. Like, I'm not, don't take it the wrong way, like I'm not going to just stop uploading or playing League, but I just wanted basically to take this opportunity to apologize for the low upload rate, especially because I was uploading a lot more before. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. There'll be a few more coming in the recent times. I'm not going to promise that there's going to be videos coming. There will be videos coming. This channel's not going to stop uploading, but after the few that I've got written down that I want to do, I'm not really sure how long it could take. It could take, you know, a week, 2 weeks, or a month for another video upload. But yeah, thanks for watching.